Rogers is preaching on Exodus 2 on the way radio right now.
I love
Really-
when God just puts
it's
all of those
really
things
cool,
together.
yeah.
It's so cool.
Well,
All right.
what Pastor Chris is talking about.
I know, even Pastor Chris was talking about it. And the song that was playing before the service was about Exodus. And I was like, okay, God, you got this. All right, Exodus 17 and 18 today. So last week, God provided manna in the wilderness. And does anybody remember what manna means?
What is this?
What is this? It literally means, what is
What
this?
is
Manna, I don't know what this is. So he provides it every day, every morning, whether the people deserve it or not. They didn't have to go earn manna. They didn't have to plow and plant and harvest it. It was just there for them. So he was teaching about trust one day at a time. This week, spoiler alert, our water runs out again. So we're going to have to deal with our water running out. We get attacked by an enemy, and Moses gets some advice from his father-in-law. Now, as much as those three stories sound so random and they don't sound like they go together, they actually go very well together, and you're going to see a theme through all three of them. Okay? So, Exodus 17, verse 1. All the congregation of the people of Israel moved out from the wilderness of sin by stages, according to the commandment of the Lord, and camped at Rephidim. But there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." And Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water. And the people grumbled against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried to the Lord, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." And the Lord said to Moses, "Pass on before the people, taking with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water shall come out of it, and the people will drink." And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel, and he called the name of the place Masha and Meribah, because the quarreling of the people of Israel, and because they tested the Lord by saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" So, the people are moving on, but it's not by their direction. Okay, the pillar of cloud is moving on, so when that gets up and move, you get up and move. Okay? So they're following God's direction, and they get to this place, and it literally means place of rest. So if this place was called the place of rest, what do you think should happen there?
They should rest.
It should rest, right? It should be an oasis. It should have water and food, and we could just be able to rest, right? But we're going to see the irony of this name. They get to the place of rest, and there's no water there. So we can't rest because there's no water. But they're doing exactly what God is leading them to do, and yet there's nothing to drink here, okay? So sometimes our obedience doesn't always guarantee comfortable outcomes or comfortable circumstances. Sometimes God leads us to dry places on purpose because He is going to show up and provide water, okay? So their basic need is going unmet. They need water, okay? They need water, their children need water, the flocks need water. Water is essential for human life, okay? Sometimes when our basic needs go unmet, our spirituality goes right out the window, right? Just all of the spiritual lessons we've learned in the past just go right out the window because we're thirsty, we're hungry, we don't know what's going on. So they point to their leader and they demand him to provide water. Just one guy with a stick. Where's our water? We need water. It's a magic stick, right? You've done all this stuff with it, we need water. And so Moses turns to God and he says, "What do you want me to do with these people? They're getting ready to stone me. They're so angry. They're getting ready to kill me because you haven't provided water for them." So God tells Moses, "All right, take that stick in your hand, the same one that we've always used, the same stick, and I want you to go to this specific rock." This is great advice, okay? It doesn't lead him to a river, it doesn't lead him to a stream, it doesn't lead him to the ocean. He goes, "I want you to go find this rock. And you're going to know which rock because I'm going to show up there. And then you're going to hit the rock." So if you need water tomorrow, just wait for God to lead you to a rock, you take a stick, you hit it, there's going to be water, right? Sounds perfectly logical, right? And Moses just follows God. He's like, "All right, let's go. I'm going to take some elders and some leaders, and we're going to go out, and God's going to point to a rock, and he's going to say, 'Hit that rock, and you're going to get water.'" Moses goes, Got it. Okay. We're going to feed 2 million people with water and all the livestock just by hitting a rock. Okay. Well, that's exactly what happens. Moses follows God. God stops at a rock. Says, this is the rock. Moses hits it with his stick that is not magical, and water comes out. And all the people have water to drink. And it's interesting that Moses names this place testing and quarreling. Those are what those two words mean. Because he says, I've really understood the reason behind all of this. He doesn't say because they were mad at me. He doesn't say because they were thirsty. He says they want to know, is Yahweh with us or not? Right? That's the question. Is Yahweh with us or not? Has Yahweh been with them up to this point?
Yes.
Yeah. They still want to know, is he still here? Is he still leading us? Is he still with us? Is he still for us? Okay? So that's the real question underneath of the complaint here. Not the water. Is God still with us?
Would it have been different? I don't know how to put that question. There was a reason that God wanted them quarreling, I'm guessing, in order to show, because couldn't they have just asked in a prayerful way for water to come to them?
Right? They still have to trust him, and they're not trusting him yet.
Right.
Because they didn't trust him before. Remember, we still have people who have just come out of Egypt. We still have Egypt in the people. We got to get Egypt out of the people. And this is how God's doing it, one step at a time. So he's taking them to a place and leading them, knowing that there's not water there. And their response is to quarrel and fight and want to kill their leader.
Instead of asking God.
Instead of going, okay, God, what are you going to do here? Yeah. So we're revealing the people here, revealing their heart and their true nature here. But God doesn't show up with speeches, right? He just provides for them. He said, okay, you need water? I'm going to provide water for you. I'm going to be here. And my favorite part is that God says, I'm going to stand on the rock and I'm going to be there. So you have this visual of the cloud standing right over the rock. And he goes, this one, like neon sign, this rock. Don't just go out and hit any rock. This is this one right here. And God's presence literally is right there. Because he could have just gave them directions. He's like, listen, go 2 blocks. You're not going to be able to miss it. That rock. And he goes, no, I'm going to lead you specifically to the rock, and I'm going to stand there, and you're going to do it, and I'm going to perform a miracle.
When he says, I'll stand there, so what does Moses...
Is that not the pillar?
Probably the pillar of the cloud.
So everybody else could see it as well?
Oh,
or just
absolutely.
Moses? Okay.
Yeah. Moses is just going through the desert, following this cloud, and then the cloud stops, and there's this huge rock, and it splits right down the middle, and water comes out.
And then it becomes 2, and that's where God's name.
Hmm?
When it became 2 pieces of rock, that's why it has the name testing.
Yeah. Testing and quarreling. Yep. Alright, so let's see what happens next.
Did they get it that that's why he named them?
No, Lord,
I
no.
wonder.
They're human.
They just go, alright, that's what happens
We
there,
got too
right?
much in Exodus.
They get
Just
too
like,
much.
yeah, we got it.
Got it, that sounds good enough. I mean, what else are we gonna call it, Testing and quarreling, that sounds like a good name for a rock. Alright, verse 8. So then all of this happens, and here's what happens next. Then Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. What does that mean? Rephidim.
Yes.
Rest. The place of rest. You're going to hear the irony of this name. So Moses says to Joshua, choose for us men and go out and fight with Amalek tomorrow, and I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses told him, and he fought with Amalek. While Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. Whenever Moses held up his hands, Israel prevailed. And whenever he lowered his hands, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands grew weary. So they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it, while Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and one on the other side. So his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, write this as a memorial in a book, and recite it in the ears of Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar and called the name of it, The Lord is my banner, saying, a hand upon the throne of the Lord, The Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. So we see the second irony of this place. Not only does it have water, but now we're at war with our enemy. This is the greatest place of rest ever in the Bible, okay? So without provocation, this enemy decides to attack. Now, Amalek is the grandson of Esau. Technically, they are relatives of Israel, but they become one of the most prominent enemies of Israel. Now, what we don't get here in this story, but if you read in Deuteronomy 25, this story is repeated, and it tells us that not only did Amalek attack, but he attacks the rear of the company. He goes after the stragglers, the weak, exhausted, okay? The foreigners, the Egyptians who came with them, they're all at the back. This is not a fair fight. They did not attack the front of this moving people. Esau. Yeah. So he attacks the back. This is a calculated ambush
Why
to
did
go
he
after it. Because he's a coward. He's a coward.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay?
Do we know why they did this?
He's going after the vulnerable people.
What's
These
his
are
game?
people.
What's his game?
Yeah.
He wants to start a war.
Oh.
So you go after the weak to go after the weak. Yeah. Because you start knocking them out, you start clearing out the weak people, and then now you've caused a panic.
And then the king that Saul was supposed to
He's a descendant.
kill is
of
descendant
all of these. Yes,
Oh, okay.
absolutely. Yep.
But why did he want to start?
Because
He didn't have
are-
nothing better to do that day?
Apparently, yeah.
Okay.
He sees these people as a threat. They're literally coming into his territory. They're coming
Okay.
for his land.
And
Yeah.
he's probably heard what God did for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't want these people coming and taking over with God on their side.
Right.
Oh,
There were
no.
so many of them too.
Right.
So many of them, and he knows these are the literal people of Israel. They're just relatives. They don't have the covenant promise. These people are supposed to hold the covenant promise. So there's a lot of threats here to
Esau
him.
was-
Esau and Jacob. Israel, Esau, Jacob. Abraham.
Right.
Yeah.
Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Esau is Jacob's twin brother.
Okay, that's right.
He's his grandson. Esau's grandson is Amalek.
But that's where the line's supposed to break and you get.
Remember, we have the break. We have Israel, and then we have
But
Esau's
doesn't
people.
one, isn't there that the family like in,
You're talking about Ishmael also breaks off with Isaac?
where they said that that's where, the Muslim,
That's Ishmael.
Ishmael, okay.
Ishmael, yeah. And then we get to Isaac, and then it breaks off again with Esau.
Okay.
I know, it's confusing. It's a lot of people.
No, I'm just wondering, Joshua, where did he come from again?
Yeah, I don't know.
I got everybody.
We're gonna come to Joshua. Okay.
When Joshua just popped in.
So let's, okay, so we have Amalek who's attacking, and we have the stragglers. So they're not organized right now. So it's basically just the people are walking at their own pace. So we have the strong people who can walk are walking ahead, the stragglers are walking behind. So that's where they get attacked. So Moses picks this guy, and his name is Joshua. We're like, where Joshua came from? Well, we know he came from Egypt. And for him to choose Joshua, we know that Joshua has some kind of training. Okay, so he might have been in with either the Egyptian army or helped as a servant to the Egyptian army, but he has some kind of training for Moses to pick him, okay? And Moses did something that looks very, very, very strange if you read it in any sort of, war manual or, trying to find strategic for battlefield. He just goes up onto a hill and he holds his hands up and prays. And this is gonna win the battle, right? This is how we win a battle, y'all. When we're just being attacked, we just go up on a hill and we lift our hands and we pray. Right? That's a good strategy, right? Okay. So this is where we see this division of energy, okay? So Moses goes up on a hill and he takes two guys with him. He takes his brother Aaron and he takes some guy named Hur. We're going to talk about Hur in a minute, okay? Joshua takes the men and they go down into the field in the valley to battle the people, okay? So let's talk about Hur. Hur appears a few times in Exodus, okay? And he's always just quietly faithful guy. He doesn't really talk. We don't really get a lot from him. By Jewish tradition, Hur is the husband of Miriam. Now that was also repeated by Josephus, so we don't know if it's true, but there's a lot of historical backing for it, so potentially, we don't know what is fact, but potentially. We do know this about him. He comes from the tribe of Judah, okay? He doesn't really say much, but he shows up exactly when he's needed, and he does what needs doing, okay? So he is there with Aaron and Moses. So up on the hill, Moses is lifting up his hands. This is the Jewish posture of prayer. This, not this. This is our posture of prayer. This is their posture of prayer, okay? So he's got his hands up and he's praying, and he's got Aaron and Hur on either side of him. Well, obviously, if you have your hands up like this for a long time, your hands are going to start getting tired, right? I mean, it's going to start burning in your shoulders, and your arms are just going to start falling.
And
He's old. Poor Moses is like 81. Yeah, he's old. And his arms are just falling, and he's getting tired, and he's tired. So Aaron and Hur get this great idea. We're going to give him a seat. They push this big rock up to him, and he sits down, and then they each hold up his arm on either side of it. Okay, so we have Moses like this, the big guy Aaron on one side holding up this arm, Hur's on this side holding up this arm, so Moses can keep praying. Because every time his arms start dropping, they start losing the battle. And every time his arms go back up, they start winning the battle. Okay, they can see it. They're on a hill. They see all of this happening. Okay? So, Moses is like this. Joshua's down in the battlefield, and they're battling. They're not just standing there staring at each other. They are fighting. This is a war. This is a battle. They are fighting with each other. Men are dying. Things are going on. And we're told that this goes on until the sun goes down, and eventually Joshua is able to defeat Amalek. Okay? So we have this beautiful picture of community. Okay? One could not exist without the other here. Moses was up there praying, and he's fighting the spiritual battle, okay, with Aaron and Hur on either side of it. And then Joshua's down with the men in the valley fighting, because if they just left it up to Moses praying up there, they would have all gotten slaughtered. Okay? But God is saying that there is a connection between Moses praying and their victory. Because who's ultimately going to get the victory?
God.
God. Okay? So we have this community that everybody is doing everything that they're supposed to be doing here. Okay? Nobody is standing idly by here. Okay? Neither one is sufficient alone. Because we have prayer without action is not enough, and action without prayer is not enough. We have two extremes here. The person who just prays and 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 prays but never acts. Okay? Waiting for God to just handle everything. And we have the person who acts and 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 never prays for anything. Okay? So we have the two extremes that we could potentially fall into, and we see this perfect balance here in this fight. Okay? So after the battle, what's interesting is God tells Moses, I want you to write down what happened. I want you to pull out your journal, Moses, because I know you got one. Okay? I want you to write down everything that happened. And he tells them, I want you to repeat it to Joshua. Now, he doesn't know how many times he's going to repeat this to Joshua, because remember, we're just thinking we're on our way to Canaan. We got like a couple months ahead of us, we're going to be in the promised land. He does not realize we're going to take a 40-year lap around the desert. Imagine how many times he repeated the story to Joshua in those 40 years. Because Moses will live another 40 years as the leader of these people. And he is repeatedly telling Joshua, remember what happened. Remember what happened. Remember what happened that day. Got to read it over again. So Joshua memorizes what happened that day. Because eventually he's going to have to lead these people. And he's going to have to remember who had the victory that day. Because it wasn't Joshua. It was God. Okay? Alright, so God declared he was not done with Amalek, even though we won this battle, we did not win the war. This would continue to play out over the centuries between Israel and the people of Amalek, just continually battling with each other. And Moses builds an altar, and he calls the place Yahweh Nisi. You've ever heard that phrase before? Yahweh is my banner. You know, you raise your banner in victory when you're off at war and things like that. So this was not military strategy. Remember, we're a bunch of slaves, okay? God is the one who gave this victory over the battle. The credit goes to the Lord, not to the human effort. Okay? All right, so let's look at this third story here. Chapter 18, verse 1. Jethro, who's Jethro?
His father-in-law.
Father-in-law.
Moses' father-in-law, okay? That's his wife's father. The priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard all that the Lord had done for Moses and the people of Israel, how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. Now Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, had taken Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her home, along with her 2 sons. The name of one was Gershom, for he said, I have been a sojourner in a foreign land. The name of the other one, Eleazar. And he said, the God of my father was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with the sons and with his wife to Moses in the wilderness where he was encamped in the mountain of God. And when he sent word to Moses, I, your father-in-law Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and your 2 sons with her. Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and bowed down and kissed him, and they asked each other of their welfare and went into the tent. Then Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardships that had come upon them in the way, and how the Lord had delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the good that the Lord had done to Israel, and that he had delivered them out of the hand of the Egyptians. Jethro said, blessed be the Lord who has delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh, and has delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that Yahweh is greater than all gods, because in this affair they dealt arrogantly with the people. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices to God. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law, before God. Okay, so Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, he shows up to meet Moses. And he brings Moses' wife and their 2 sons.
So they just wandered out into the desert from where?
We're going to cover that.
Okay.
All right, so that means that at some point after the circumcision incident, remember when Moses was heading back to Egypt, they had this whole issue about his son was not circumcised, and so the wife had to cut part of her son away, okay? She throws it at his feet. Apparently that caused some kind of rift. Imagine. That must have caused
She
a
threw
fight.
that skin at whose feet?
Moses' feet.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm. And called him a bridegroom of blood, a groom of blood. So that caused a fight and an issue, and apparently he sends her and the 2 boys back home to her dad's. And he goes on to Egypt alone, without his wife and his 2 sons.
Well, I guess his dad had it.
Now, about how
I guess
old
her
were the
dad
sons
had
at this particular
We're
age?
not told. We're not told. We have no idea how old they were. Could have been, young kids, or could have been teenagers or young adults, but yeah.
But we have to remember too that Moses pretty much caused this because he was disobedient.
Absolutely. So you see this rift that it caused in his family by his disobedience. This is the consequences of his disobedience. But that means that Zipporah and the 2 boys did not get to experience everything that happened in Egypt. They were not there for the plagues. They did not cross the Red Sea. They knew nothing of what happened to Moses. There's no emails, no text messages.
So they went away
Right.
before the Egypt. Okay.
Yes, they got sent back. They had left and were going with him to Egypt,
Mhm.
and then that
And
incident
then
happened.
she acted a little
Yeah.
snarky and he didn't appreciate it.
And then
so
they went
off
back
he
home to her dad's house, and then Moses went on to Egypt. 10 plagues, Pharaoh, all of that
Can you
happened.
imagine if you're like, I'm tired of you.
Right.
Woman,
I'm going back to dad's.
I'm not a fan. I'll
Right.
send for you when I'm over it.
He didn't even send for her. Dad was like, I'm not
I'm
here.
Her dad was like,
Back
listen,
the nails on my-
you take her back. You need to take your wife back.
They are.
Remember?
Yeah, I
Remember
remember
her?
Right.
Yeah. So they've kind of met up here, and he's bringing his wife and his 2 sons back. And we finally get to learn the name of the second son, because in the original story, we just got the name of the first son. And his name meant sojourner. I'm a foreigner in a foreign land. Okay, so now we learn the second name, Eleazar, which is when it's translated as my God is help. Okay, that's what it means. All right, so Moses tells Jethro everything, even though Jethro had already heard by this point everything that has happened, because news travels eventually. But Moses tells him everything from his perspective, the plagues and the hardening of Pharaoh's heart and the deliverance and the Red Sea and the rejoicing and everything that happens. And I love this, Jethro rejoices. He's like, isn't God so great? Isn't God incredible for bringing you through all of that? Okay?
Cool story, bro. Here's your wife.
Cool story. Here's your wife back. I think she's ready for you now. And he recognizes what Moses is describing. All of the plagues are not just natural disasters, or not just coincidence that happened. It was actually the dismantling of the Egyptian theology. And he now says, I know that Yahweh is greater than all the other gods. Now, y'all, he is a priest of Yahweh. And this is what convinces him that that is all true. Because of what God did in Egypt.
Moses' dad?
Moses' dad. Yeah. This is what convinces him. He recognizes
He's the
that
father-in-law.
he's the father-in-law of Moses.
I had
Yeah. He recognizes that there's all these gods, little g, that other people worship. And he says, now I know for sure. Yahweh took out all of the gods of Egypt. Yeah, he's God. He's God above all the gods. Okay? And I love this because this is such a Baptist thing to do. When we're out rejoicing, what has to happen? Food. We offer sacrifices and we get to eat. And they just throw a party. And everybody gets invited and they share a meal together with the elders. And they get to rejoice all together. And how we wish that the story would end there, but it doesn't. We get to see what happens the very next day. Verse 13. The next day, Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood around Moses from morning till evening. When Moses' father-in-law saw that all he was doing for the people, he said, what is it that you're doing for the people? Why do you sit alone and all the people stand around you from morning till evening? And Moses said to his father-in-law, because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a dispute, they come to me, and I decide between one person and another. And I make them know the statutes of God and his laws. Moses' father-in-law said to him, what you are doing is not good. You and the people with you will certainly wear yourselves out, for this thing is too heavy for you. You are not able to do it alone. Wise words from a father-in-law. Okay, this is exactly what Moses wants to hear, right? Now, obey my voice. I will give you advice, and God will be with you. You shall represent the people before God and bring their cases to God, and you shall warn them about all the statutes and the laws, and make them know the way in which they must walk and what they must do. Moreover, look for able men from all the people, men who fear God, who are trustworthy and hate a bribe, and place such men over the people as chiefs of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens, and let them judge the people at all times. Every great matter they shall bring to you, but any small matter they shall decide themselves. So it will be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you. If you do this, God will direct you, and you will be able to endure. And all of this people also will go to their place in peace. So Moses listened to the voice of his father-in-law and did all that he said. And Moses chose able men out of all Israel, and made them heads over the people, chiefs of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens. And they judged the people at all times. Any hard case they brought to Moses, but any small matter they decided themselves. Then Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went away to his own country. So the very next day, Jethro decides to go see Moses at work. Okay? Moses is sitting around, and from morning until evening, all these people just line up because they have all these problems. Yeah, of course they do, because we've got 2 million people out in the desert who are hot and hungry and thirsty, and they've got disputes going on, right? So Moses has to be judge over all these people and figure out all of these different disputes, okay? Every question, every argument is coming to Moses, and Moses has to decide between one person and the other, okay? And he does this all day long, and Jethro, watching this, goes, what are you doing? This is all wrong. You're going to wear yourself out doing this every day until the sun goes down. Imagine 2 million people and all their problems and drama coming to one person, okay? And having to stand there in that line and hopefully get your case heard that day. Otherwise, you got to go line up tomorrow and do it all over again until it's your turn.
With no problem.
With another
With another problem, probably, okay? So Moses in this moment could have gotten defensive, right? This is working. What we're doing is working. This is what I do. I'm the leader here. I'm the one who stood before Pharaoh. Have you met my magic stick? It can part water and seas, and it can break open rocks and find water. Who are tell me what to do. What does Moses do?
Listen.
He goes, you know what, that's pretty good advice.
He
I'm
listens.
kind of tired. I don't want to sit here and listen to these people all day long. And so he says, you're right. That's wise advice. This is exactly what we're going to do. Jethro's advice was practical, it was structural, okay? So Moses finds capable, trustworthy men, fear the Lord, and they hate dishonest gain. They cannot stand bribery. Because if you're a judge, what are people going to try? Bribes. Okay, so we're already going to get ahead of that, okay? So he organizes the people in groups of thousands, hundreds, 50s, and 10s, okay? Because we know drama, right? It's got to escalate. And he lets those leaders handle the ordinary disputes. Anything that comes up, go to your leader first. Don't come to me. But if the cases keep getting escalated and nobody can figure out a solution, those are what come to Moses. So Moses can handle the hard cases. And in the meantime, I also love that Jethro adds this. Teach them. Teach them what God tells you. Okay? Teach them the laws, the statutes, what God expects from them. Okay?
So was God talking through Jethro at this point?
Yes.
Or, I mean, because did Moses take that advice and go, okay, God, was that from you? Or?
Yeah. Is that from you? Are you speaking through this? Not only priest of Midian, but my father-in-law.
Mhm.
And this is great wise advice here. Okay? So he tells Moses, teach the people. Don't just judge them. Teach them the law that they're supposed to be following. Okay? So this is how we build a sustainable community. If we have people who understand the principles behind the law. Because if you just say, do this thing, and don't ask any questions, that's probably only going to last maybe a generation, maybe not even that. Because then the kids are going to come up to dad and go, why are we doing this thing? And they're going to go, I don't know, this is just what we do.
Because I said so.
Because it said so.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it either. The kids are probably not going to follow those rules, okay? So if Moses is the only one who understands the why behind all of these rules and regulations, the whole system is eventually going to fall apart. So Jethro says, teach them the why behind all of these laws, okay? And if the whole system depended entirely on Moses, and Moses is taken out, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Collapse.
A collapse of this whole thing. That's not leadership, okay? Jethro also tells him a second thing. He said, this is for your sake and the people's sake. You're tired of sitting here from morning till night every day listening to these people. The people are tired of lining up every morning to figure out their own disputes, okay? Everybody's going to get burnt out here, okay? So,
Be in the light.
sometimes doing too much is not faithfulness. Failing to trust other people with the work that God has given them to do is faithfulness, okay? Because everybody's got a job to do. It's not just about the one person standing out there and leading all the people, okay? It was Moses' responsibility to teach these people and lead them well, okay? So, Moses listens, he does what Jethro says, he chooses capable men, and he sets up this whole system as Jethro describes, and then I love this, and then Jethro just goes home. His work's done.
Without the daughter and.
I dropped off my daughter, I dropped off my grandsons, I gave some advice.
I'm
See
out.
you later, I'm going
Peace out.
home. I got a job to go back and do. This was just my vacation. Love you, see you at Thanksgiving, right? He just goes home, back to doing what God had called him to do. All right, so we have 3 pictures here. 3 stories of dependency. Because the first one, people needed water. Where are they going to get it? God provides it out of a rock. Are you going to depend on me and trust me to provide water for you even in the dry places? Moses and the people were at a war. God provided Aaron and Hur to hold up his arms. He also provided Joshua and the men to go fight the battle. Moses needed his father-in-law to tell him he was doing things wrong because he was getting burnt out and the people were getting burnt out and they were going nowhere with all of this. Because you imagine, because we can't even move forward if we're having to sit here and listen to all these squabbles all day long. Okay? So Moses needed someone to give him advice and tell him, you're doing too much. Okay? So we have these 3 pictures in every case, real needs with real provision and real community. We needed something outside of ourselves to provide for us. We call that dependency, okay? And note that this is not a failure of faith. It wasn't because they lacked faith. It was because they refused to humble themselves and ask for help. We see that in each and every single one of these cases. The people who needed water refused to ask God for help. They complained about it. God still provided. Moses needed somebody to hold up his arms, and Joshua needed help fighting this battle, and God provided. And Moses needed help, and he didn't even realize it. And his father-in-law was the one that came along and said, you really need some help here. This is not a system that's going to work for long, because you're going to get burnt out and people are going to get burnt out. Okay? So faith that refuses help is just spiritual clothing there, right? It's pride. That looks really pretty. Because if I get up here and do all of this, this is what I'm supposed to do. And we ignore leadership, and we ignore dependency. We ignore help, okay? So here's your challenge for this week. Identify one specific thing that you are carrying alone that you were never meant to carry alone. And figure out who is your Aaron, your Hur, or your Jethro that needs to come along and help you. And ask them